Stop giving your money to woke corporations that hate you and your values. That's why I order all my men's shaving products from Jeremy Razors. Order your Precision 5 starter set today. This set comes with 4 razor blades, sharp as true, with tungsten handle and flip back trimmer. You're not in the market for razors? Jeremy Razors also has other facial products fit just for men. So you don't have to stock your bathroom with products that clean your body but stains your conscience. So shut up and shave. Go to jeremyrazors.com and use cburns15 to save 15% off. That's jeremyrazors.com. Use my special code cburns15 to save 15% off. Welcome back, everyone, to my channel. My name is Chawanne Burns. Welcome to another episode of Business Talks. Let me make sure you can hear me. I am your host, and we have a lot of things that I want to talk about. We're going to take a stab at the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club had Larry Elder in to speak since he's one of the candidates for president. And they had him on to speak, and he actually had to school them. They were totally unprepared for this interview, which they are all the time. I don't know why they feel as if, since they have a big platform, they could interview people like Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott. I don't even know if Tim Scott been on there, but Angela Stanton was on there a few years ago. She toured through them. They were like totally unprepared, and they always are unprepared. Joe Biden was on the Breakfast Club, and he toured through them, always unprepared, and they lack the intelligence to ask intelligent questions or effective questions to get the audience to say, okay, I will vote for this person. I will not vote for this person. But they got their own agenda. Their own agenda is to spread hatred against white people. That's their agenda. They want to stand firm on this white supremacy talking point. And they did the same thing in this interview with Larry Elder. So we'll talk about that today. Then later on, after that interview, we're going to talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he was under fire for some comments he made. He used the word rigor, and of course, the race baiting people like Al Sharpton. He tried to make this like a racist slang. But Al Sharpton, pick up a dictionary. Rig and rigor is actually words that can be found in Webster Dictionary. And I don't understand why people are falling in this trap of, hey, yeah, he's just because, he has a black prosecutor on several of his cases. You automatically tried to make it like Donald Trump was saying a racist comments about the people that's prosecuting him. And it wasn't racist. He was saying this is rigged. And anyway, we're going to look at their commentary after the Breakfast Club interview. So let's get started with that. I'm warning you guys, you'll be triggered because the blatant ignorance permeating through the Breakfast Club is ridiculous. It is literally ridiculous. I tried to get through the Breakfast Club just through the interview, but I was getting too pissed off. So I tried to make talking points or, where I want to start off at, but I was getting too pissed off to even go through the whole thing. So let's try to get through this interview. It's about an hour long. I'm going to put it on a faster speed so maybe we could view it faster. But here it is. This is where he's first, Larry Elder is first introducing himself and basically is talking about why he is running for president.
In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, I feel our side is not talking enough about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You say MAGA?
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is a breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
Charlemagne, I'm surprised. If you're saying if your statistics are right, you read Charlemagne, you're the numbers guy. So why are you trying to act like his statistics is wrong? It doesn't make any sense to me.
As I said, it's because in the mid-60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, a young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home, married to the mother, than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people?
This is where it went off the rail. It's already 4 minutes in the interview, and Charlemagne wants to blame white people for everything. It's 4 minutes and 34 seconds in the interview. And Charlemagne wants Larry Elder to explain to him what did white people do wrong. Does it matter, Charlemagne? Apparently they didn't do nothing wrong with you. Last time we talked about when he was Vivek Ramaswamy was there. Last time we talked about Charlemagne. Charlemagne make about $3 million a year alone off the Breakfast Club. So apparently the white man's good to you. Apparently. You did something right.
People do. I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe that?
No, there used to be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
At the top of mind, I'll probably say maybe mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's to break down the family.
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children. I'm a happily married black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I asked you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. And I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. Mm-hmm. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone reelected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Mm-hmm. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama, elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard.
Not only you discouraging black people from working hard, you're discouraging black people to take accountability of their own actions. The white man didn't create an illegitimate baby. It took 2 people that was in the bedroom that created that baby. One was a woman and one was a man. The woman had a choice whether or not to be on birth control, and she could control access to her body. The man could control access to his body, and if he wanted to have sex with her, he could have put a condom on. That's called accountability. How is it that other race of people have accountability and we're the only ones that say, oh, we're not smart enough to have accountability, we can't control ourselves, we're just a bunch of animals? That's what the danger of this message Charlemagne is spreading. It's all one person's fault other than your own. And you can't control yourself. Because maybe you're not smart enough. You guys, let me know what you think. What type of message is he spreading to other black people? Black men on top of that. Black men is listening to this nonsense. And if you see this, the comments in this stream, everybody was like, Charlemagne, you got schooled. You wasn't prepared. He asked you name one good systematic racism. And I do give him point, mass incarceration. But if you look at the statistics, okay, back in the 90s, yeah, mass incarceration, but Donald Trump reversed that bill that put black folks back, black drug dealers behind bars unfairly, right? Because Biden's crime bill. So he reversed that. So what's the problem with mass incarceration now? He already told us the statistics about the crime rate. We're only 13% of the population, but we committing more crime. Why is that? And you can't tell me black people cannot be or inherently are bad people. That I think that's a false narrative. It's a look, it's a lack of having parents. And I always say these fools can't read. Once you become more educated and read more, knowledge yourself, you stop doing crazy stuff.
Okay. Mr. Elder, quick question. Let's just remove the word racism.
And here's this fool. She thinks she gonna one up. Let's remove the word racism. They're so dead set on blaming white people for everything instead of taking ownership from for yourself.
Since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole, let's just focus on the word system.
Okay.
You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the Black family, should certainly have some room for some improvement. Let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged Black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in
Okay.
charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they Black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of Black people were Democrats, as the majority of Black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember
How do the white look? This is why I really got irritated with this interview. This lady, Teslin, I think her name is Teslin, she's trying to hone down the system is white. Okay. But if you're talking about elected officials, who elected those officials? And that's what Larry Elder is trying to explain to her. Okay, these people are not dictatorship. They got there somewhere. People elected them. And who elected them? Not only white folks elected them, but Black folks elected them. And this is what he's trying to explain to her, but she doesn't get it.
the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or Black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or Black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the Black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right. And what I'm asking was it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system?
And she tried to be condescending, but your question is not a valid question. Your question is a stupid question. Because everyone knows if you're an elected official, it doesn't matter if you're white or Black, somebody elected you in there.
Are Black people in charge of that system that helped break down the Black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or Black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct? Okay.
Most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people.
Not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who put them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or Black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help.
Fine, Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay, but if your argument
is, thank you. This is what we're gonna go through this the whole night because she thinks she won open. You're so. This is so stupid. This is so ignorant. This is an ignorant. I just don't understand. She act like she was. Oh, thank you. Okay, but who voted them in there? But people voted Lyndon B. Johnson in there, and like Larry Elder, I don't think it was like, oh, let me put all the Black people on welfare. No, it was an elected type of, you chose to be on welfare. You didn't have to be on welfare. They didn't force people on welfare. You chose to be on welfare because you didn't want to deal with your man. When the welfare system came around, that's when the feminist movement was picking up steam. And Black women was listening to the white women talking about, oh, you don't need no man. You come work over here, or you can collect a paycheck. The man trying to keep you down. You don't need no man over your household. And we end up worse off than the white woman. And we got Teslin Figaro just because she got a a degree in something. I don't know what she got a degree in. I think she's a lawyer or something. And she's supposed to be a mediator. But what does she mediate besides a bunch of mess? She keep up a bunch of mess. You could tell she keeps up a bunch of mess, and she's trying to debate someone with higher intelligence, and she can't do it.
Is that the reason he did it is because of racism? Then I
No.
disagree. He did it because of
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question. Was he white or black? Charlamagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you talked about the smash and grabs, right? And I find that interesting because when you see the mass shootings that happen, majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually, if you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, the percentage of mass shooters is under that. The percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. The percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that
But no,
of
you
mass
specifically
shootings.
talked about the smash and grabs, though. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about the mass shooters that are usually white males?
One more time. They are usually white males because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number of mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population. They underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong? I'm gonna keep asking you that because I want.
Well,
like, you
well,
do
it seems
anything wrong
to me, rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city, you want me to talk about how bad white people are,
No, I'm
which
saying
I don't think
there's a cause and effect.
which I don't think is a particularly productive thing to do.
Well, I think
No,
I'm
no,
talking.
It's not productive. That's your problem. You either want to hand out or you want to blame other people for your problems. It's not productive. What the white man did is not productive. And did is past tense. You so worried about what happened in the past, you can't even keep your eyes on the road. How can you move forward? Because you're so busy worried about the past. It doesn't even make sense. You're on Charlamagne is a damn fool. And I don't understand who will ever listen to Charlamagne or get any type of political advice from Charlamagne. Because he sounds like a damn fool. How can you be so successful and you're worried about what happened to you 5 days ago? I would like to know how Charlamagne became so successful. It doesn't make any sense. If he's so worried about what the white man did wrong. No, what are you doing right in your life?
I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI says.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks lived below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
But they
choice
still
but
were
to do it
living
ourselves.
below the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Well,
on system.
can I just address that? In 1940.
Teslin, that was a bad point. We know we lived below the poverty line back in the 40s. That we know that. That wasn't his point. He talking about we didn't have any money then, we stayed together. So why did we break up when we started getting money? Why can't we bring it together? Because it's not the poverty. That's his point, Teslin. Why can't you understand that? It's not the white man's fault that we got a bunch of illegitimate babies.
87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home, a strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlamagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives
But
Matter.
all of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres. Like every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy it.
Every time, look, the Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt. It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. It was rebuilt, by the way, by black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, but who destroyed it to begin with?
It was racists who destroyed it.
But it was rebuilt. And I didn't know that they called it Black Wall Street after they rebuilt it. I didn't know that. So I was just schooled. But the point is they rebuilt it without a dime from the federal government. That's the point. That means we can do it.
No question
Okay,
about
let's
it.
make a
We've
shift.
had race riots. So have Japanese.
So you do agree that
And, you know, I do want to point out, it's very irritating to me that when we talk about this kind of stuff, systematic racism and stuff that happened in the past, okay, a lot of liberals will tell you, and this is where they're going, they will tell you that since you are a conservative viewing person, you are trying to disown or say it does not exist, racism doesn't exist. Well, you will have to be a damn fool to say, oh, racism doesn't exist. And that's not what Larry Elder is saying. He's saying, okay, I know there's certain things that exist, racism, that is out of my control. But what I do have control of, that's what I'm going to focus my energy on. Do you know how far we will be as a people if we do that together? I know I cannot control this outside parameter, but I can control everything that happens, what I'm doing, how it's going to affect my people, how it's going to affect my family, everything I do. Because all your actions have some type of reaction. So I don't understand when we get to talking about this, liberals always want to point out like you're just trying to say racism doesn't exist. No, we know racism exists. We just continue to focus on the things that matter. Why are we so hyper-focused on what another person is doing and not hyper-focusing on what we could do and what we should be doing? Anyway.
there's racism. I'm just so
You
confused.
know,
Mr.
I never even came close to saying. I never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just say you don't think it's systemic racism.
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called slavery. We had something called Jim Crow.
That destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was system that destroyed. That was the system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now that's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants, because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you move, and then you go on to say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused on, do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time.
That's not what he said. You're just not listening at this point. You're trying to get a gotcha moment, and you're not listening. You're not listening to understand what he's talking about.
I said it wasn't.
There was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism. Let's talk about.
So what, are you just hung up on the word system?
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please? Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s. They had riots against Chinese in LA, in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American or a Japanese American kid to have a child outside of wedlock, and a strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because
I didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
no, you said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
You talk about the Asian community. Asian community is easy for them to get loans loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses.
Here go DJ Envy, the quiet storm. Look, you don't know. You don't know that. I hate that narrative where people think that, oh, your white counterpart or your Chinese counterpart is going to get a better loan than you, or a loan more favorable than you, or you might not get one. And that's, to me, that is false. I've been working in loans for the longest. I help other people get business loans. I've received several business loans for my business. So, and for some of my commercial property. So I don't know what he's saying. I think that's a false narrative for people to say, okay, my credit score, if your credit score is low, you might not get a business loan. Business loans are very stringent. They have stringent policies. So yeah, if you got high debt ratio, you don't got no equity, you don't got no credit, yeah, you might not get a business loan. And I tell my clients that all the time. You might not get a business loan because you got poor credit or you got too much debt. And then you got all these business, and these are Black business, I guess, moguls that's trying to teach people how to use your business credit to get business loan. But a lot of them be lying to you because they selling the narrative, oh, you don't need to use your personal credit to get a business loan. Well, if you don't have no legitimate business, and if your business don't make a certain dollar amount, you're going to have to use a personal guarantee on your loan. This is the lack of education of what he's talking about. And I wish he would stop telling that lie, DJ Envy, because I know you for a fact receive multiple loans for your properties. How'd you get your loans?
You look at our community.
Okay.
If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which
Right?
is why one
books.
of the reasons I'm running for president is for school choice.
Also, would you say that it's in our
That's
community?
also systemic. by the
It's
way.
also in our community is heavy food.
That is not, look, that's not systemic. That has everything to do with you voting in these crackpot politicians and identity politics that ruin your community. You got people in your community that don't believe in school choice. They don't have accountability for failing school system. Child left behind means all children was left behind. You don't penalize people for doing crimes. So that's why your neighborhood is sucky. Take ownership. That's what we need to start doing. Taking ownership of what we've caused. It had nothing to do with the white man. We caused most of this stuff that's happening today. We caused it. We 100% caused our own demise today.
There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic too. by the way.
Boy.
Would you say that's true? I'm just asking a question.
Okay, you said a number of things. I just addressed one of them about
Sure.
loans. In 1965, Barack Obama, who's in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 Black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that Black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of Black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a Black community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the Black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on one second, Charlamagne. But so
What's not
you
true?
bring about facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We talk 2023, right? my son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because
Because
his
of-
father
because of
owns
you-
his house.
because
his
of
father
you.
owns the house, right? But my father
Because of you and the
his
drive-
sister
because of you and the drive you put
family
into
did
him.
not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into
We're
him.
not going to have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking
Okay.
you a question. I just let you speak and I'll
All
let
right.
you talk.
Okay.
I can talk.
We
Okay.
have a conversation.
All right.
But when we talk about it, right, it's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores, it's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurs.
Charlotte, right now, Envy is making up stuff. You could get a Pell Grant. You could be poor as Poe and get a Pell Grant. It doesn't matter what type of grades you have. Whatever school you go to, if you get admitted, accepted into a community college or university, if you poor over this line of Pell Grant worthy, I think it's like 65,000 a year. If you guys let me know, put it in the chat. You can get a Pell Grant. So what are you talking about? And I don't know if Larry Elder said this with Asian people. Asian people, reason why they get better loans and they're able to get loans, period. They have the highest credit score. They live within their means or below their means, and they save their money. That's why they're able to get better loans and all that good stuff, because they got really good credit. If we choose not, but we choose to buy Cadillac, use our credit to buy Cadillac trucks and stuff like that, and get a high ass car note, then we say, oh, let me go out and get a loan for a business loan. No, you sucking that $1,700 payment that you're putting in your car. You could have put that in your business, but you need a business loan. Take that car back. You don't need a fancy car. Anyway.
Entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it. And
why is he saying that? I don't understand. It's so many people of color scholarships, LGBTQ scholarships, people of color. Why is he even saying that? That they're giving money, especially grants and scholarships, to just white kids? We know that's not true. We know that's not true. Kids, especially if you a kid that's in sports, you get an athletic scholarship or an academic scholarship. But hello, if you're going to the public schools and your subpar academics, can't pass the ACT, you can't do pass the SAT test, you don't get a high score, of course, your academic scholarship, you might not get one. Whose fault is that? We got to take that's not nothing to do with systematic racism. No one stole the book from you. Libraries are free. Studying is free. You got to take some ownership. You don't get a loan or a grant or a scholarship is because what you put in is what you get out. Your credit score is not high. It's because you got a high debt to ratio. You don't pay your bills on time.
a 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man, once said that if you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
let's just When you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, other population.
This is so sad right here, because you could tell she didn't take a statistic class ever. She didn't take statistic class, probably no probability, probably math class at all, because why are you even asking this question? But I'm going to let her continue. But it's a really stupid question.
Population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. You seem to pick and
I'm
choose.
talking about
when
the
you want
rate.
to do-
I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is. The bottom line.
She's saying whatever it is, but that's the answer to your question, lady. Rate. Do you know what rate means? No, apparently not. That's why it's so frustrating. Listen to this. She doesn't like the simplest things. She's trying to hone down into something, but you don't know what to hone down into because you don't know what he's talking about. You don't understand. Layman's term. I was talking to my son. My son, I have them doing summer bridge learning. This is a book where it teaches them the next course or the next grade. So, every day they just do 2 pages. It's some math, some reading, logical questions, stuff like that. And my son asked me, "Hey, mommy, I didn't know what such and such." He asked me the question, and I said, "Okay." No, he was like, "Is the answer is this?" And I said, "Okay, what is the question?" Then he said the question. I said, "Well, do you know what that word means? If you don't know what the word means, how can you answer the question?" And I said, "Okay, figure out that word mean, then read the question again, then answer it." You see what I'm getting at? This is the same with her. Now, my son is 9. My son is 9. This Teslin Figaro, she might be in her mid-30s to late 30s. But like, if you don't know the words, how can you answer a question or ask a question if you don't know what he's talking about? And then if he gives you an answer, it's not the answer you're expecting because you don't even know what you're asking. This is really making my brain hurt.
Line is it's more white people than it is black people. And so if more black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you'd only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking
I'm not
points,
sure you understood.
which is why they say,
I'm not sure you
No,
understood.
understood.
I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, "Okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back."
I'm not talking about
Fast
this,
forward,
sir.
they weren't able to pay them back, which proved
Sir,
the
I'm not
Citicorp
talking
point.
about that. I'm not talking
I know
about
you're
that.
not,
I'm talking about your
'cause
response.
inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you
I'm
like
not talking
numbers,
about
Washington
I
Post
said-
said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of
20%
their credit
black,
score.
all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
Mr. Elder. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mhm.
Nobody
Well, let
said
me help-
nobody said if you have a father you won't go to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father you were going to jail. My father never.
But guess
knew-
what you did say, Mr.
Can I-
Elder? I'm sorry,
may-
respectfully.
May I answer? May I answer his
let me just say
question?
this. Guess what you did say?
May I
I'm
answer his
gonna help you
question?
'cause I know-
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 8, when he was 13 years old, 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saved his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown LA. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, "I know for a fact." Tupac, excuse me. I know for a fact. Had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. How did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This
That's
is
right.
your words.
That's right.
It was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens
but it's
to
not-
black
but
people,
it's not about race.
systematic-
It's not
No,
about
I didn't
race.
ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want
So when
to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being
No, I
treated the
didn't
same
ask
way
you
as
that.
Hillary
You
Clinton,
didn't-
all these
Mr.
people are
Elder,
white. All these
you-
people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my
said-
question.
You said that
You didn't hear my
You
question.
said some people commit crimes. So you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, them, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime,
Well, no,
I don't.
specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail. And they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted.
Indicted, Charlemagne. Come on now. Indicted is accusing. They're innocent until proven guilty. Okay, that doesn't mean he's going to jail. Cut it out. Cut it out. This interview was dumbing down. It actually is bringing down my IQ. My IQ wasn't even that high from the begin with. Now I'm gonna be stuttering and talking. Y'all not gonna be able to understand me by the end of this interview. It's really frustrating.
That's a far cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got
then,
arrested.
sir?
Is what I'm
Well,
saying.
he got
He's going to get arrested.
He got
He's been arrested.
he got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She
So was it the
she
system?
destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the fourth time. It's
Hey, man,
unfair.
Right.
Black people
By
been
what, the
telling y'all how
system?
corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the
right.
FBI,
J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat
And Malcolm X,
Attorney
and
General, Malcolm X, lots of
Elijah
things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
What's your thoughts with
Justice being
Florida?
served all across the board.
And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I
on
find it interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto,
That's a lot of
the party of Dred Scott, the party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody. Not Ron DeSantis. He's not defending.
People benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one
Well,
line.
actually,
you're talking about one
there
line
is
in about
somebody-
127 pages of the study, and it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the same thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think
Well,
about
sir,
that line?
you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal
It
in
was.
response to reparations. So it's you that was.
That's not defending slavery. That's just stating a fact. Slavery was legal. Matter of fact, in all across the world, it's illegal now, but slavery was legal. How's that defending slavery because you said it was legal? I just understand. How is that defending slavery? Because I told you a fact. Slavery was legal. And look at this crazy lady. Look at her face. She's like a dog with a bone. You can tell she crazy. Something wrong with her. Maybe her braids too tight. A dog with a bone. You could tell a person crazy too. Any woman wearing white eyeliner is cray. Like you're wearing eyeliner, white eyeliner. Are you crazy? Now, don't give me no crap because some women do wear white eyeliner, but I'm just saying, come on now. This ain't crazy.
Was defending slavery, correct?
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things.
She don't know that. She don't know. You're trying to speak common sense into somebody that don't have any common sense.
Slavery,
That was your response.
slavery.
Well, that was your
Unfortunately,
response. That was
slavery-
your response into if reparations should happen. So your response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that was a defense on those who were asking.
Well, you would think it was a defense,
Yeah,
but
let me
it is not a defense. Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. This is a culture, the Western civilization, that had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this. This is a flawed country. It's moving forward. It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today, if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and computer grade level, which is why I support school choice, don't have a kid before you're 20, get married first, get a job, keep a job, don't quit it until you get another job, and avoid the criminal justice system, you will not be poor. And if you don't follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
You know, the first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you write.
Well, you didn't say, I've not yet qualified. It's not until August 21.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you write in the op-ed that the Republican National Committee has rigged the rules of the game by instituting a set of criteria that is onerous. What is it? Onerous.
Onerous.
Onerous. And
Mhm.
poorly
I
designed.
mispronounced Tupac, so you mispronounced onerous. So,
That's right.
so we're even.
You are really petty, man.
And he said, and poorly designed that only establishment and billionaire candidates are guaranteed to be on stage. Explain to us why that system hurts people.
Well, I ran for governor of California. I got 3.5 million votes. It seemed to me that made me credible. The RNC is requiring us to have 1% or 40,000 individual donors. In 2020, the DNC required you to have 1% or a certain number of donors for reasons that I don't quite understand. The RNC is requiring you to have both of them. One of the candidates in this race is a multimillionaire. He's offered a $20 gift certificate if you give $1. Another one is offering a free, air quotes, country western concert if you give $1. Another one is giving you a commission if you are a prospective donor to go out and get other prospective donors. It seems to me that corrupts the whole process. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, Charlamagne. I'm asking people to support me and go to my website, larryelder.com, and give me at least $1. If I get $1 from 40,000 individuals, I will be up on that stage in Milwaukee on August 23. When I get up there, game on, hold my beer.
So why is this system, is this system holding you back? Would you say it's a system holding you back?
I would say it's unfair. It seems to me this early, the voters ought to decide this. I mean, in 2016, there were 17 or 18 Republican candidates. Now there's 13. Somehow, some way, our republic survived, and we could survive with 13 candidates. I don't know why they have all this rule to eliminate certain people at this point. But rather than
those systems can hold you back no matter how hard you work, right?
I'm going to say, but rather than whine about it, my goal is to get on as many shows as I can, like yours. Urge people to go to larryelder.com, give at least $1, even if you want somebody else. Don't you think it's wise for us to talk about the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America remains systemically racist, and the need for school choice? 13 public high schools in Baltimore, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Are you kidding me? 53 public high schools in Chicago, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party is opposed to school choice, while the party elites, whether it's Barack Obama or Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden, have their own kids in private school. It is wrong, and we need to talk about that.
Larry Elder, why would somebody from our community vote for you, or why should they vote for you? Why should a black person vote for you?
Because I'm telling the truth, and the truth oftentimes is unpleasant. It's not pleasant for me to be called the black face of white supremacy, as the LA Times did. It's not pleasant for me to be accused of being anti-black, as Tavis Smiley once called me, because I don't support reparations. By the way, Barack Obama never supported reparations. Nobody called him anti-black. We need to talk about what's going on. What's going on is the breakdown of the family. And most of the things we complain about downstream, whether it's crime or whether it's bad schools, the genesis is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and we don't talk enough about it.
Do you agree that our community is hit hard with a lot of things that you just said, whether it is racism, whether it is getting loans, whether it is getting entrepreneurship, whether it is education, whether it is all those things? You do understand that and agree with that, correct?
I do, but much of it is either self-inflicted or because of policies that we have supported, Democrats that we have supported. I wrote a book it's coming out in October. It's called As Goes California, My Mission to...
Self-inflicted. Self-inflicted. Or policies we voted, hence self-inflicted. I totally agree with that. We're trying to, Charlamagne, DJ Envy, and Tesla is trying to blame white supremacy for everything. No, 99.9% of your problems comes from what actions you took. Okay, let's say 95% of your problems. What actions you took? And they're like self-inflicted. I totally agree with that.
Rescue the Golden State and save the nation. It's about the one-party rule in California. California has supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And as a result, our schools are near the bottom. People are leaving California for the very first time. We have the highest state income tax in the country. The average price of a home in California costs 175% above the national average, all because of these left-wing policies that are hurting the very people, black and brown people living in the inner city, that people on the left claim that they care about.
Do you think slavery was self-inflicted? Or do you think Jim Crow segregation was self-inflicted? Or do you think,
slavery was self-inflicted? Of course, it wasn't self-inflicted, but there are a lot of people have bloody hands in slavery. For example, slavery could not have existed had it not been for African chieftains who were selling black slaves captured in battle or captured through raids and selling them to European and Arab slavers. It could not have existed without that. So everybody has dirty hands here. That's why reparations is such a foolish thing. If you're going to get reparations from the 5% or so of white people that have some sort of generational connection to slavery, and that's all there is, then you need to go back to Africa and get money from African countries that were involved in the slave trade and in the Arab slave trade. And by the way, the Arab slave trade was even worse than the European slave trade. 90% rate of attrition, often making men and women walk on barefoot across the Sahara, and the men were castrated. Only about
So if they go after the money from the other countries, then would you agree that it would be okay to go after the money from America? Is that your problem? When
are you going to stop with this? Everybody has agreements. I'm answering your question. There'll be no end to this because slavery has been part of human history from the very beginning.
Okay,
be getting
now
money.
I've let you talk, sir. I've let you talk. And every time I talk, you begin to talk and then you say, let you finish. So I asked you a very simple question. You said, if you're going to go after it in America, go after it in Africa. So we all agree to go after it in Africa. Will you then agree to go after it in America? It's just a simple question.
No,
Yes or
no, I won't, because it's a waste of time. We ought to be spending our
Okay,
time
no problem.
on
Next
education.
question.
Okay. You told me that I cut you off. Then I tried to answer your question. You won't let me finish.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. It's a waste of time. We ought to be talking about working hard, investing in ourselves. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians in Haiti lining up for a lottery to come into this country. Why? Because it is the land of the free and the home of the brave. You can go from nothing to something faster in America than any other country in all of human history. We ought to be talking about that. Let me just, one more point. 1997, Time Magazine and CNN hooked up together to do a poll on what black teenagers and white teenagers felt about racism. And both of them were asked, is racism a major problem in America? Both of them said yes. But then Time and CNN asked this question of the black teenagers. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is 1997. 89% of them said small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many blacks said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism.
Oh,
Twice,
1997.
1997. Look it up.
It's 2023 though.
You think America's more racist now after the election and re-election of Barack Obama than it was in 1997?
Yes, because of the election of MAGA, Donald Trump, 100%. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, how is it, Charlemagne, that Donald Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016? He got 12% in 2020, a 50% increase. He got 20% of the black male vote in 2020. If MAGA is racist, how do you explain that Donald Trump substantially increased the percentage of black votes the Republican Party got?
Sometimes people make.
So why are you
points.
running against Trump then, Mr. Elder?
Yes,
I'm not.
You better not say that. You better not say that. Did you hear what he said? He said sometimes people make poor choices. No, how about these people woke up and start thinking for themselves and said, no, we're not voting Democrat. They started thinking for themselves.
I'm not running against him. I'm running against Biden Harris. Any one of the Republican nominees we have would be better than what we have right now. I'm not running against him. I'm running to put forth the issues I just now mentioned that I've been talking about for the last few minutes.
You know, I want to ask you about that. You know, after 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges, don't you think it would behoove the Republican Party to move on from Donald Trump?
I think that the voters in the primary will make that decision.
What do you think, though?
I have no problem with I thought Donald Trump did an extraordinary job as president, especially for black people. Best economy ever. He did something about the borders. The people that are most hurt because of porous borders are black people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little or no education. They end up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs. There are about 1 million fewer black people working than who would otherwise be working if it weren't for illegal alien labor. And illegal alien labor, according to a study done by the Civil Rights Commission, puts downward pressure to the tune of almost $2,000 per year on the salaries of black people living in the inner city. And Donald Trump gave us the most secure border we ever had. He also supported school choice. He also did the First Step Act, which allowed about 5,000 mostly black men with long criminal sentences, nonviolent, to have their sentences reduced an average of 70 months per. He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. Even Barack Obama didn't do that.
Yeah,
he did an extraordinary job for black people.
I think you're innocent until proven guilty, but I feel like President Biden had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. You know, President Obama had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. Y'all would be telling them that they need to step aside and they shouldn't be running for president.
Well, I wouldn't vote for Barack Obama or for Joe Biden in any case, no matter whether he had indictments or no indictments. I don't vote for taxpayer and regulate liberals.
You're a conservative, right? Obviously.
No question.
What initially made you gravitate towards being a conservative?
I think it was my father. My father was a lifelong Republican, and my father always told my brothers and me the following. Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad, I told you about his background. He told my brothers and me that hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, Larry, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you moan or groan about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, Charlemagne, my dad, told my brothers and me this. No matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad stuff is going to happen to you. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. I wrote a book about my father's life. It's called Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. It's about an 8-hour conversation he and I had, where at the beginning of the conversation, I thought my dad was harsh. I thought he spanked us too often. We had a belt. In those days, from the South, you spank kids. And I thought my dad was way too harsh. And we had an 8-hour conversation. And by the time we ended, my dad got bigger and bigger and bigger, and Larry Elder got smaller and smaller and smaller, and I apologized to him. And it's a book that's changed a lot of people's lives. It's called, as I said, Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. The paperback is called A Lot Like Me. Same book, but it's cheaper.
Can you honestly say this is the Republican Party that you grew up on? This modern day GOP?
Yes. The Republican Party pretty much has always stood for low taxes, low regulation, peace through strength, not strength through peace, and strong borders, and still does. And when Donald Trump is gone, and he will be gone, even if he gets reelected, day after he gets reelected, he's a lame duck, the party will still go on. The principles will still go on. However, I do believe that many people in our party have spent so that Ronald Reagan, my favorite president, when he entered the Oval Office, Charlemagne, when he left, government was bigger. It got bigger under George Herbert Walker Bush. It got bigger under W. It got bigger under Donald Trump. And the only way to restrain spending is with an amendment to the Constitution to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP, with exception for war and for natural disaster. Otherwise, we're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Let me use the word unsustainable. That's the word Barack Obama Obama used to describe the so-called entitlements. Unsustainable was a word that Bill Clinton used to describe them. But nothing happens because if you run claiming you're going to reform Social Security or Medicare, the other side is going to accuse you of not caring about the sick, the poor, the elderly, and you are going to lose elections. That's why government gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need a law to restrain spending. Otherwise, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And for young people like you, these programs are not going to be there.
Mr. Elder, I know a lot of Black conservatives, and I completely agree about the Black family. I don't think anybody here objects to that.
Don't disagree about that at all.
I think when you talk about ideology and then you mix in parties and then personalities, it gets kind of confusing. And, you know, you mentioned yourself not to moan and groan, you know, that as long as you work hard, all is well. And I think where the conflict is coming in is you did moan and groan about how the Republicans treated you. You did moan and groan about Governor Newsom and, you know, asking for a recall. You did not leave that up to the voters. You are moaning and groaning when it comes to Donald Trump and how he's being treated. So it just seems to be a hypocrisy. And I don't know if the message would land a little bit better if there was some fairness across the board on Democrats and Republicans. I'm an independent, by the way, and I think both parties are trash. And I think all of us here, you know, see both sides. And that's the part that's just not landing for me. There seems to be an unfairness on both sides with you.
Well, not too surprisingly, I don't agree with your analysis. How is it that I did not leave the recall to the voters? What do you mean by that?
What do you?
You said I didn't leave the recall to the voters.
No. I said you moaned and groaned about it. You said it should be recalled, correct? Correct?
I said Gavin Newsom should have been recalled, yes.
Right, that's moaning and groaning.
Well, actually, it's taking advantage of what's in the California Constitution, which is when a certain percentage of voters sign a petition to recall a politician, there can be a recall vote, and there was one, as there was in 2003, we recalled the governor then, and there was in 2021 when I attempted to recall Gavin Newsom. That's part of our democratic process in California.
Absolutely. We agree with that. I'm going to your statement when you said rather than moan about it. A little while ago, you said rather than moan about it, I'm just going to keep doing the hard work. And so I'm just saying that technically is moaning about it because the governor's the that's my point, sir.
I don't follow exactly what.
She just trying to get another got you moment. You're not going to understand what she's saying. She's trying to get a got you moment. Her fame. So everybody she's trying to go viral. Oh, she won up Larry Elder, but she really sounds ridiculous.
What you're saying, I really
it's
don't.
okay. I don't expect you to.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm
one moment.
I'm a little slow sometimes.
One moment.
And then she's very disrespectful.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
One moment you're complaining about the system, and the next minute you're saying the system is fair. The next minute you're saying it's not fair. So that's what I'm saying. There just seems to be a double standard on you and the system, not wanting to be accountable for a system that Black people are not in charge of, by the way, of not wanting to hold both sides accountable when it comes to the system.
Do I believe Hillary was treated differently?
She's saying Black people are not in charge. There's a lot of Black people in the Congress, not the Senate. You know, we got like 3 senators, but Congress, it represents the population. So what are you talking about? Major cities, these major cities have Black mayors. So that's the part of the system. Or am I making that up? You got, and he started off with that, Larry Elder. You got 3 very large cities: Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, Baltimore. These are major cities, and they got black people in charge. So are those the system? Is that part of the system? Or no, we can't say that's part of the system because they're failing. Is the system over that system?
Differently, and Joe Biden treated differently than Donald Trump is being treated? Yes, I do. Is that an indictment about whether or not America is systemically racist? No, it is not. Those are two totally different things. Yes,
you're trying to merge the two, but they're 2 totally different things.
I agree with you. They're 2 different things. No, we're agreeing. We're agreeing. They're 2 different things. We're agreeing.
No, we're agreeing to 2 different things. We're not agreeing that there's not systematic racism because we're not in charge of the system, sir. In case you
all right.
Black people have never been in charge of any system.
Well, actually, we have been. Take Baltimore.
No, we've never been in charge of any system. Tell me, what financial system are Black people in charge of? What healthcare system are Black people in charge of? What government system are Black people in charge of? What prison system are Black people in charge of?
I'm ready to tell you.
I'm not talking about mayors. I already know that talking point, sir. I go on Fox News all the time as well. So let's not go there with that. I said, what system have we created? Have we implemented that we have been in charge of? Name one.
Is this why you don't like talking to Black women, Larry Elder?
Wow. Baltimore, Freddie Gray a few years ago.
No, that's mayors. I'm not talking. I said system.
I'm going to tell you about the system if you allow me to finish my point.
I'm not talking about somebody elected and doing a job, sir. I asked, what system did we create? What financial system?
Okay, let's talk about the system of one of the largest. Thank you. One of the systems of one of the largest.
But I'm sorry. I have to stop her. Okay. So you're saying, what system did we create? Okay, so are you saying that we don't create anything? To me, that's what she's saying. Black people don't create shit. So we're not in charge of anything because we never created anything. That's what I get. So I'm just, because she's saying, what system are we in charge of that we created? Isn't that what she's saying? So are you saying black people don't create shit? So black people are stupid too. So I'm just trying to get what she is getting at.
Largest cities in America, Baltimore. Freddie Gray died in police custody a few years ago. The mayor was black. The head of the police department was black. Number two,
It's not in charge of the system, but go ahead.
Number two person in charge of the police department was black.
Still not in charge of the
All the
system.
city council, Democrats, majority black.
Still not in charge of the system.
Wow.
That's a position.
6 officers charged, 3 of them were black. A judge before whom 2 of the officers tried their case found him not guilty was black.
Still not in charge of the system.
The city intendant of public schools was black. The county superintendent of public schools was black. The attorney general at the time, Loretta Lynch, is black, as was the president of the United States, was black. And yet,
Still not in charge of the system.
who's in
I
charge
asked
of
you
the
a simple
system,
question, sir.
well, Wanda Sykes said when Barack Obama got elected, how are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? Now, from the president to the attorney general to the state attorney to the mayor to the head of the police department to the commission of the schools in the city and in the county to the majority of city council in that city, all of them are black. And you're still saying that we don't run anything?
So who's in charge of the
No,
system? Ted?
I said who created the system. I didn't say we didn't run anything. I challenged a lot of those black leaders, by the way. I said when we talk about the system, what black people have been in charge of any system. I'm not talking about a position. I'm not talking about a mayor. You know,
Oh, so you're basically saying that they're black faces that are still in those
Correct.
positions, but they're still
correct.
being part
Similar
of the
to you,
system.
Mr. Elder. You're a black face in a position in the conservative movement. They're just the same. They're just on the other side. I'm talking about.
So then when Martin Luther King said in 1966, I believe there could be a black president in about 40 years' time, then it really doesn't matter whether there's one or isn't. Nothing changes. He was naive.
The
He was
system also
naive then.
killed him as well. Well, we know that the FBI and the CIA also killed him. That system. You realize that, correct?
Wow. An individual killed him.
Right. That was also a part of Pro Hotel through the system.
COINTELPRO,
Correct.
yeah.
Not correct.
COINTELPRO.
Not correct. He was
So
killed.
the FBI didn't have anything to do with it. The CIA didn't have anything to do with
J.
it.
Edgar Hoover was definitely on Martin's ass. Like, come on.
I didn't say he wasn't.
No.
Robert Kennedy is the one that approved the wiretaps. But to say that the FBI killed him, I mean, what's your evidence of that?
Oh, no,
That's a pretty serious charge.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Pretty serious charge.
Yeah.
Serious charge
Yeah, I
requires
was talking
serious
about the
evidence.
Yeah.
What is your
Mr.
enforcement
Elder,
law proposal?
It is to allow.
You see how she just went off? The system. What the system? Who gives a shit? What does the system got to do with you? What are you doing about the system? You working on the system. You on the Breakfast Club in the system. Like, come on. You getting paid from the system. So you saying, what are you saying here? The system? I just don't understand. I told you, you guys you're not going to be able to understand what I'm saying because my IQ is going down lower and lower. I don't even know what the hell she's talking about. What is she saying?
States to set up commissions of retired judges and retired DAs to get rid of these soft on crime George Soros-backed DAs that are allowing a bunch of bad people on the streets or not charging bad people to the full extent of the law. And the people that, by and large, are hurt by these people are the very black and brown people living in the inner city. There's a Larry Krasner is a George Soros-backed DA in Philadelphia. He's been impeached, but this Philadelphia State Senate wouldn't even take up the case. We've had 2 attempts to repeal a soft on crime DA in LA County, and it hasn't gone through yet. We've got a bunch of, in my opinion, this guy, Alvin Bragg, he ran promising to get Donald Trump. And when he got in, he said the evidence wasn't there. And then one of the former DAs writes a book, accuses Bragg of giving Donald Trump a pass. And all of a sudden, he brings counts against Donald Trump. I think it's unfair.
Do you think members of your party are leaning toward fascism?
Define fascism.
Authoritarianism?
Define fascism.
I mean, the rejection of democracy, the rule of law, and
And you know, when people use fascism and all those other words, they don't even know what it means. Do you really know what fascism means, Charlemagne?
equal rights under the law in favor of a strong man, Donald Trump, who interprets the popular will?
No, I don't. There was a long article about Barack Obama by one of my mentors. His name is Thomas Sowell. He's an economist, black conservative, still alive, around 95 years old. And he wrote a piece in which he said a lot of people call people like Barack Obama socialist. Socialism is government ownership of the means of production. Fascism is when the government allows you to own means of production, but the government tells you what to do. And he said, frankly, technically, people like Barack Obama are fascists. That is to say, these are left-wing people telling you how to run your business, telling you what to sell, telling you what you can't sell. For example, in California, we have a governor named Gavin Newsom who recently said by the year 2035, no more sale of new gas-powered cars. How dare you?
Yeah.
Most people don't want an EV. They like their own gasoline-powered cars, but now you're telling car dealerships they can't even sell them? What do you call that?
But what about, when you tell women what to do with their bodies?
Well, that is a moral issue. I happen to be pro-life, and I believe that that abortion is a sin. That's not telling women what to do with their body. That's expressing my opinion about whether or not it is right or it is wrong. For example, there is a guy right now behind bars in Philadelphia named Dr. Kermit Gosnell. He is an abortion doctor who performed late-term abortions. When I ask people who consider my position to be extreme, I ask them, tell me at what point do you believe pregnancy has gone so far that to terminate the unborn would be homicide? And almost nobody will give you an answer. So in other words, what you're really telling me then is this guy, Dr. Kermit Gosnell, should be set free. He's a political prisoner. He was persecuted unfairly. If you won't tell me when you think at what point a pregnancy cannot be terminated unless it's homicide, then to me you're essentially allowing women to kill the unborn, no matter how old that unborn is. And I think that's wrong. The other thing, Charlene, real quickly on this issue, it'd be one thing if the pro-life community was not talking the talk and walking the walk. But there are literally thousands of pregnancy centers all over America, whether it's funding for adoption services, funding for housing, funding for education, funding for job training, to let women know they have alternatives. And every state will decide this. The government shouldn't be passing some sort of law one way or the other regarding abortion. Every state's going to decide that. I'm in California, which is a deep blue state. There have been 2 initiatives to restrict abortion. I voted in favor of them. I was overwhelmingly defeated. And when abortion has been put on the ballot in recent years, the people that wanted abortion restrictions have lost. The American people pretty much have said first-term abortions, they want them to be legal. Late-term abortions, they don't want them to be legal. I happen to disagree with that, but I'm willing to live in a society that has a different point of view than I have on this issue.
Can you have a real democracy if you're taking away people's power of choice? If you're taking away people's power to choose, not giving them any options.
Well, if you consider it to be
democracy?
if you consider it to be a crime, that abortion is a sin, in my opinion, you're not taking people's right to choose. You're making a moral statement about what's right and what's wrong.
There's a lot of sins, though. Sex before marriage is a sin. I'm sure you did some of that.
As for the sins of my past, either the Lord has forgiven me or the statute of limitations have run out. I'm making a joke about that. A lot of people, of course, make mistakes, yes.
Okay.
And I think that people should deal with the consequences of their actions. And if you let people know their consequences of their actions, it will inform their actions and make them behave more responsibly. Anytime you allow bad behavior to continue, you're going to get more bad behavior, whether that's...
So how does that apply to President Trump then? Because you said that was a two-tier system that
because
that's unfair.
I don't believe that Donald Trump...
You don't think he did anything?
I don't think he did anything wrong. No, I don't. I believe that he complained about the election the same way Hillary did. Hillary, for 4 years, referred to the 2016 election as having been stolen. Her word, not mine. She called Donald Trump illegitimate. Her word, not mine. Jay Johnson, who's Obama's DHS secretary, testified under oath that not a single vote tally was changed by the Russians. They tried, but they failed to change a single vote tally. 66% of Democrats believe the Russians changed vote tallies to get Donald Trump elected, even though Jay Johnson testified under oath, not a single one was changed. That's the damage that people like Hillary and former President Jimmy Carter and Stacey Abrams and Hakeem Jeffries and others have said for years, referring to Donald Trump as illegitimate. A greater percentage of Democrats believe 2016 was stolen than we feel that way about 2020, but yet nobody calls them election deniers and nobody accuses them of undermining our republic. And they're not undermining our republic. They're complaining about an election. You have a right to do so.
I know you probably got to go. Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake-up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not going to...
Shut up, Charlemagne. You should have been mad about that. But what is the system? You wanted the system, Charlemagne, right? You couldn't talk to your master that way.
See, it upset me just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like
well,
that. But what I did say...
Well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney, because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seems to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, no, for the record, I'm not...
A nigga wake-up call for you and everybody that was listening.
A Democrat or Republican.
I didn't say you were.
I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you about your party affiliation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black. Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump. How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I
Very
mean,
condescending.
you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
Well, I did.
As I said to him in that moment, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for my people now. How are you going to atone?
Look, you want a handout. You want a handout.
For the things you've done to my people.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And this is a guy, Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people, and his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He's opposed to school choice when he has his own kids in private school, and we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people, and then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think as a black person, it blew my mind.
As a person objectively who doesn't care about either party, when I just take a step back and I just look at everything that's happening, I see one party that seems still committed to democracy somewhat, and one party who's headed fast towards fascism. That's just my personal opinion. So who do you think I would vote for?
Well, let's talk about fascism, since I assume you're talking about election denying. In 2000, when George W. Bush won the election over Al Gore, the Democrats, the first week of January 2001, tried to overturn the results in Florida. 2004, George W. Bush gets reelected. Democrats, including Benny Thompson, chair of the January 6th committee, Jamie Raskin, a member of the January 6th committee, joined with 28 other House Democrats and Senator Barbara Boxer to overturn the results in Ohio, claiming without any evidence that the Debo voting machine had been hacked. 2016, January 2017, Democrats challenged more states trying to get the election overturned that elected Donald Trump. Then Donald Trump challenged first week of January in 2021. Nobody accused them of undermining our republic. Nobody accused them of being fascist. They exercised whatever means they could to try to win the election. I want to remind you that Hillary Clinton advised Joe Biden during the 2020 election, if it is a close election, quote, do not concede under any circumstances, close quote. Donald Trump used whatever legal means he could, advancing some novel legal theories to try to stay in office, and he failed. But I don't blame him for trying.
Yeah, but it's not just election denying. It's the disdain of women in fear of non-standard gender identities and sexual orientation.
Disdain
it's
for
the
women.
galvanizing of popular rage against cultural elites. It's nationalism based on dominant, superior race and historic bloodlines. Like, there's a lot of things that Republicans are doing.
Well, what about Joe Biden going to Howard University, as he did recently, giving a commencement speech, Charlemagne, and he said the number one threat to the homeland was white supremacy. Really? The
FBI said that.
The Anti-Defamation League keeps track of how many people are killed by extremists, no matter the race of the extremists, every year. Last year, there were 25. As I said, in 2020, there were 11,000 blacks who were murdered, almost all murdered by other people, not murdered by white extremists. It's a lie to say white extremists is a big problem in America. It's a lie. It's what Democrats do to get black people angry.
The FBI said that.
It's what Democrats. Fine. I don't agree with that. The number one threat to the homeland is a large number of people who are engaging in criminal activity. And what Democrats do is tell black people racism, racism, racism. They trot out David Duke or some other facsimile every 4 years to tell black people, vote for us because, after all, we're the party of racial justice, social justice, and equity. And these dastardly people over there, these Republicans, are the party of Jim Crow and slavery, even though it was the Democratic Party that was the party of Jim Crow and slavery.
So why should black people rock with the GOP then? Like, what are the reasons?
Economics. I had Tavis Smiley and Cornel West on my radio show once, Charlemagne. And I told Tavis and Cornel West that under Ronald Reagan, black adult unemployment fell faster than white adult unemployment. Mm-hmm. Black Hispanic unemployment fell faster than did white unemployment. Black teenage unemployment fell faster than did white teenage unemployment. Black businesses were created at a rate faster, their revenues grew at a rate faster, and they both told me that I was wrong and that they would have the data on my desk by Monday. That was 15 years ago. I know the mail is slow, but it seems to me they should have given it to me by now. Again, Donald Trump presided over the best economy ever for black people, lowest unemployment, and it seems to me the number one reason that most people vote is because of the economy. We have had 40-year historic high in inflation. We've had gas prices that are now about 40% more than what they were when Joe Biden came into office, and we have about 7 million illegal aliens in our country, and the bulk of the suffering because of these illegal aliens will be borne by black people living in the inner city. So those are three reasons alone not to vote for the Democratic Party and to vote for the Republican Party. And by the way, I'm not voting for a fishing budget.
Look, Larry Elder, you spilled all that information out. They'll still vote Democrat. They'll still vote Democrat. You know why? Because the Republican Party is racist. Because that's what they want you to believe. They believe it in their heart. The Republican Party is racist and white supremacy. And Teslin, she always says that she's an independent. No, she's a Democrat. Because she don't give this much smoke to any other Democrat. Charlemagne had Biden on when he was running for election. He was very insulting. And he didn't lie in front of his face. And he didn't give him any smoke. But they have such a disdain taste for any conservative. That's why they're giving him all this. And every time they have a conservative on there, they eat them up because you can't disprove facts. You can't just deny facts. They're focusing on their emotion, and all these conservatives that ever been on their platform always come with the facts, and you can't deny it. And they're never ready. They're never prepared. They ask them a question, they never prepare for the answer.
It's not because I like Trump or like him personally. I'm voting for policies. And I don't really care whether or not his personality offends people and he does bad tweets. Maybe it might be better for our society if he were more polite. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not voting for a fishing buddy. I'm voting for somebody to keep taxes low, keep regulations low, to secure the borders and keep us out of unnecessary wars.
Would it be fun to have money in a fascist country, though? To be black and have money in a fascist country? Or to be anything other
Well,
than
I don't agree this is a fascist country.
He keeps on using word fascism, and I don't even think he knows what fascism means. Does he really know what that means?
It's always better to have money than not to have money.
All right. Anything else, Tess?
Well, just a simple question. Have the Republicans done anything that you disagree with? Just out of curiosity.
They spend too much. I think taxes are still too high. I think that there are a lot of Republicans that support things like minimum wages. And by the way, Milton Friedman, one of my favorite economists, said the minimum wage is perhaps the most anti-black law in the statute books, close quote. At one time, a black teenager was more likely to have a job than a white teenager until the minimum wage came along and kicked it up and up and up. So there are policies that the Republican Party supports, like minimum wage. Some of them do that I don't like. Also kinds of licensing, unnecessary licensing. I was at an Apple store a few years ago, and this black woman waited on me, and she was very sharp technically. I'm not very technically sharp, and I was very impressed. And I said, have you always been technically sharp? She goes, well, not really. I'm just here because I want to earn enough money to get a license to cut hair. I said, black hair? She said, yes. I said, you don't know how to cut black hair already? I have black barbers in my family. Everybody learned how to cut hair on their own. She said, well, in California, you have to have a license to get, you have to have a license to open up a shop to cut hair. I said, how much does it cost? She said, $5,000. I said, you need to get a $5,000 license to learn how to do something you already know how to do? What is that? So a lot of the rules and regulations... Okay, fair, no matter
how hard you work.
Well, the system applies to both blacks and whites too, but fair enough. Those systems ought to be struck down. So there are lots of things Republicans do that I don't.
Well, it's not just cutting hair. You know that. You know they have to train how to learn with diseases and to make sure your clippers are clean and make sure certain things that you have to follow certain protocols so that you can be a barber, so that you can make sure that the community's safe when you're doing these protocols.
Well, if there weren't government protocols, there'd be other protocols. For example, there's something called the Consumer Reports. That's not government. And it comes out and it talks about cars and what cars are good, cars are safe. If government didn't do these kinds of things, entrepreneurs would step in and they would have licensing. So there'd be a little sticker on the window when you go to a barbershop and it would say, I've been approved by so-and-so licensing board or organization.
Some of it's bullshit. 5,000 is too much though.
There are all sorts of things that we would do if the government was not doing them.
Do you have a black barber?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Actually, I have a black barber for 25, 30 years. He got cancer, and now the person that owns the shop, who is Latina, cuts my hair.
Okay. Oh, I do want to ask you one final question. When do you think systemic racism ended? Since you said it don't exist anymore, when did it end?
I can't come up with a specific time, but Civil Rights Act of 1964, Brown versus Board of Education, the Loving versus Virginia Act that struck down race mixing. You couldn't for 13 states you couldn't marry a white woman. Again, I think that when Barack Obama got elected, it was a big deal. When Obama got elected, this is really important. He got elected with a little more than 52% of the vote. He walks into the Oval Office the third week of January. He had a 70% approval. Now, how can that be? How can 15% all of a sudden support this man? It wasn't because they wanted capital gains taxes raised, which Obama promised to do. It wasn't because of Obamacare, which Obama promised to do. It's because many Americans said at the very least, he'll stop the nonsense that America remains systemically racist. And for 8 years, in my humble opinion, he played race card after race card after race card. So when he entered the Oval Office, both blacks and whites thought race relations would get better. When he left, both blacks and whites thought they got worse. Why? Because he did things like the Cambridge police acted stupidly when they didn't. If I had a son, he looked like Trayvon. When what happened to Trayvon had nothing to do with his race. He embraced Black Lives Matter. He invited Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 times. He said that racism is in America's DNA. He said all sorts of things so that when he left, both blacks and whites thought race relations got worse.
Right, but sir, this is where and we can just agree to disagree because you're mixing race relations and voters, what voters decided to do, who might just be very good people that decided to elect a black man, confusing with institutional system racism. And those are just two totally different things. And it's okay if we disagree to disagree. I'm talking about structures, not what voters did or, voters wanted to see better race relations. We're talking about structures, the same structures that you referenced several times that have also spited you. So that's
Joe Biden, for example, when Georgia reformed its law, said it was worse than Jim Crow. It's Jim Eagle. More blacks voted in Georgia than ever before.
Yeah, I don't think we beat this dead horse, you guys. I don't want to watch it no more. And we almost done. They got like 4 or 5 more minutes. But they wasn't prepared for this interview. Larry Elder, he completely owned them. And I don't understand this systematic racism. You're so focused on what somebody else is doing, and you need to get your house in order. The white man's not doing anything to you. You doing it to yourself. It has nothing to do with the white man. And I think if we get that in our head, we'll be further ahead of the game. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, get to some of your chats. Hanging AZ said they throw the word Nazi around as well, like it means nothing. They need to talk to a Jewish with a Jewish survivor. Tez is a pseudo intellectual. Someone just like her told her she was smart, maybe in college. Yeah, pseudo is the right word. Larry is a class act. Larry Elder is super smart. Yup. The way she says sir makes my head hurt. Yeah, because she was being condescending. That's what she was being condescending. That's why she was doing that. I'm going to go to our next topic. And this is where Donald Trump, he used the word rigor. He was referring to the rigged indictments. And this is from CNN, Alyssa Farah. She had her comments, and I forget, Kate, I think her name is Caitlin Hollins or something like that. Let me just pull it up, you guys.
Democratic political comment.
So, and I guess they're trying to make it as a racist remark. It wasn't. Riggers is in a dictionary. Rig, it means to pull, do the work. Look, you want me to find it for me? Let's look up the word rig. Rigger is the person. It's a noun. I don't know why they're trying to make it like, oh, he was trying to insinuate a racial term. No, he wasn't. He wasn't making it a racial term. He used it correctly. He used the word correctly. So I don't understand. I don't understand why they have why they're trying to make it racial. I don't understand that. Let me just show you this. So this is rig. Everyone knows rigged election. Someone to fit out. You made it. You made it fit. You furnished it. Look, these are to put in condition or position. That means you actually rigged. Rigger. The one that rigs. Hello. It's like these people just stretch. They want you to say, oh my God, he's sending in your window comments, racism comments. He's trying to be slick about it. Oh, no, he didn't. No, he didn't say rigor. That's what people want you to do. Get you all wound up. And I don't know if a lot of black people is talking about it, but I know a lot of white people is talking about it. They're more offended. Besides Al Sharpton, we know Al Sharpton's going to jump on the bandwagon. It's a race bandwagon, so he's going to jump on it. But you notice how many white people are offended by the word rigor. It is actually in a dictionary. And Trump actually used it correctly. And this is what they do. Here's CNN talking about it with Jake Tapper.
Keith Boykin, a Democratic political commentator and former White House aide to Bill Clinton, he took issue with that term. Take a listen.
Oh, and he wants to find the riggers, his word, not mine, who stole the election from him. Rigor, please.
Boykin went on to say Trump's choice of words is not an accident after spending days making racist attacks against Fani Willis, the black woman leading the prosecution against him.
Was Trump making racist attacks? I don't understand that. Hey, you indicted me on 41 frivolous charges. Doesn't matter if you're white or black. Hell yeah, I'm mad as hell because this shit is rigged. Why are they trying to make it a racial issue? No, anyone would be mad about it. She just happened to be black.
In Atlanta. Alyssa, what do you make of the racial accusation Keith Boykin was making there, that the use of the word rigor is not unintentional? President Trump has certainly been accused of racist
Peep her response. She's ignorant.
language before.
Right. With Trump, you don't need to look for a dog whistle. It's a bullhorn when it comes to race. And I do think that's deliberate. We've seen slanderous attacks that he's put out against Fani Willis, alleged things I won't even repeat. So he's not really hiding that he's going to lean into that element. And this is taking place just outside of Atlanta. When you saw the courtroom, it was a lot of black men and women who were serving in that courtroom.
I don't know why it cut off, but anyway, it was a lot of black women serving, black women and men serving in that courtroom because it's Atlanta. I mean, what are we saying here? What actually are we saying here? You can't use the word rigor. I don't understand that, and it's an actual term.
Language. I mean,
this is, of course, I'll try to find a list of full clip, but this is Reverend Al Sharpton. Of course, he got to jump on the bandwagon too.
and the racial language. I mean, this woman to call a federal office or call a judge's chambers talking about to a slave using a word that rhymes with the N-word. Donald Trump himself, their leader, using the term riggers, which clearly rhymes with the N-word. I mean, this is not 10 years.
I wish people would stop being so stupid. It's not the time. It's just like not the first time we heard the word rig. It's rigged. Matter of fact, if you go on my YouTube channel, I put rigged on one of my thumbnails, and it's like, haven't we been using that word? He just changed the. I mean, come on now, isn't it rigged? I mean, wouldn't you call them riggers? Isn't that the proper term? Let me know. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Maybe it does have a racial undertone to it and he's trying to be slick, but I don't see that. I don't see what they're saying.
Years ago, 30 years ago, when we marched against him on the Central Park Five, I'm talking about within the last 24 hours, used the term riggers. Is this the kind of party the Republicans want to show the country that they are? There's no wonder independents are running away from them. To identify with blatant racism and blatant violence is not the party that we need. And I've never been a Republican, never leaned their way, but we need a two-party system. But we don't need one that prides itself in bigotry.
Yeah, and Trump has used, of course, that racist and inflammatory language for so long, and only leading into it further as he's dealing with.
You know what? I can't. I don't understand why people are so stupid. I just don't understand. I don't understand how come we are so stupid. People are so stupid and they just latch on to anything that they can latch on to cause an outrage. And now you got people that actually probably never heard the term rigged. I don't know why it would be new to them because they've been using that term a lot. So if you're watching CNBC or MSNBC or CNN, you're thinking like, oh, Donald Trump, there he goes with that racism again. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. That's Daily Caller. I just don't understand. What is the outrage from that term? Some of these are making memes. Donald Trump is going after all the riggers. They got this on South Park. Donald Trump is a rigger. This is his tweet, you guys. A large, complex detail from irrefutable report on the presidential election fraud, which took place in Georgia, is almost complete and will be presented by me at a major news conference at 11 a.m. on Monday of next week in Bedminster, New Jersey. Based on the results of this conclusive report, all charges will be dropped against me and others. There will be a complete exoneration. They never went after those that rigged the election. They only went after those that fought to find the riggers. Why is this a problem? Why is this a problem? Why is this racial? Can anybody tell me that? Just making stuff up to something to be mad about.
Riggers, which
This is it. I don't know who this guy is, but maybe he's commenting.
clearly rhymes with the N-word.
Oh, and he wants to find the riggers, his word, not mine, who stole the election from him. Rigger, please.
Trump, you don't need to look for a dog whistle. It's a bullhorn when it comes to race, and I do think that's deliberate. We've seen slanderous attacks that he's put out against Fonnie Willis.
Really? Yeah, apparently. You know why the media has such a low approval rating? It's because of stuff like this. Incredibly stupid things like this. Where Donald Trump is being critical of a process that he doesn't trust, and whether you think he's wrong or not, he's allowed to have those opinions. At least he used to be allowed to have those opinions.
You can't have those.
So he's been complaining about it. Unfortunately, when you complain about something the media doesn't want you to complain about, they come after you. And if you're Donald Trump, they come after you extra hard. They pretend that you're a racist. They say that you're a giant, total, unrepentant racist, which is why you're using code words like rigger, which no one has ever used as a racial slur until Donald Trump did. Now that Donald Trump has said the word, it is now a racial slur. Trust us. Listen to our analysis. We're smart people. Look at the things we're saying. By the way, here's Al Sharpton, an actual racist. Go look up Al Sharpton and the things he's had to say. He's on MSNBC. So is Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough introduced a resolution in Congress slamming this guy for being an anti-Semite. Yet now they work together at MSNBC, and it's fine because Donald Trump's the real racist.
And the racial language. I mean, this woman to call a federal office or call a judge's chambers talking about to a slave using a word that rhymes with the N-word. Donald Trump himself, their leader, using the term riggers, which clearly rhymes with the N-word.
You got to be like super retarded. You gotta be. I know my mama always told me to respect my elders, but this guy, I can't respect him. I can't respect that. I mean, you really got to be something special to say, hey, he used rigged and riggers throughout the text, and now it's a racial slur. Does that make any sense to you? I can't understand, why are we like this? Why is media like this? I just don't understand that. This person is mean. They shouldn't have put that up there. And he wasn't even talking about her. You see what I'm saying? It's just like he's just referring to the whole process, that he's not only indicted by her, he was indicted 4 different times. They're interfering with the election process right now as we speak. They're scheduling, or I don't know if she actually scheduled it, but Super Tuesday is March the 5th. She tried to schedule court date right the day before. For the day before the primaries. That's when and you don't call that election interference? Let me look it up. I think that's what, I don't know if they was able to schedule it, but that's what she was trying to do. Oh, March the 4th. Georgia prosecutors seek March 4th trial in Trump racketeering case. Why would you do that? And if you look at his calendar, I think I took a snapshot of it. Let me see if I can find it. But in all his schedule, it's all booked up for court cases because they want to take up all his time for court, so he won't have time to campaign. That's what they're trying to do. They don't want him to have time to campaign. Here it is. It says the timeline combined with Trump other proposed and scheduled criminal cases could put Trump in the courtroom for most of the first 6 months of the 2024, a span that covers almost the entirety of the GOP primary in which he's the front runner for the nomination. They're doing this on purpose. If that's not election interference, I don't know what is. And Trump is also facing several civil lawsuits that were scheduled to go to trial over the next 6 months, but he's unlikely to attend those in person. So far, judges have largely rejected Trump concerns about the political calendar and the likelihood that he could be forced off the campaign trail for long stretches if Trump dominant position in the GOP primary holds. However, those contests may less climatic than if the race were tightened. I personally think that they're causing him to build up more steam of supporting Donald Trump. I don't think it's hurting him. I think it's actually emboldens his campaign. Let me show you guys this one thing. Screen. This is Trump court case. So August 21, Trump news conference at Georgia charges. 23rd, he got the GOP debate. 25th, that's the deadline he got to surrender. 28th is the January 6th court case. That's in DC. October the 2nd, he got some lawsuit. January the 6th, proposed trial for, or that's January the 2nd. January 6th is the proposed trial date. January the 15th, the Jean Carroll defamation civil suit. I thought they threw that out. January 15th, Iowa caucus. So those 2 days are coinciding. He has some class action lawsuit on pyramid schemes on January 29th. March the 5th, Super Tuesday. But that's when they're trying to, March the 4th, they're trying to put that one court case in there. They're trying to start trial by then. March the 25th, that's the New York's criminal trial. That's the one with the Stormy Daniels. They said, you know, he paid them hush money. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to do that. So y'all can see. So that's the 25th of March. July the 15th, or actually May the 20th, the classified documents trial. July the 15th, Republican National Convention, and then Election Day. So really, he's going to have to campaign in between those dates. He's going to be tired. And depending if they're starting trial, he's not going to campaign. These trials could last a long time. A trial could be a few months. And what are they going to do when if the Republican parties decide to nominate Donald Trump? What are they planning to do? Are they going to put the trial on hold? I just don't understand. Hanging AZ, this, you said they're calling black folks white supremacists on the media now. Oh, probably so. You know, you're the black face of white supremacy. Yeah, I could believe that. Yeah, that's Alyssa Farah. She's on The View. I haven't seen The View in a minute. I don't know if they off air right now or they talking about canceling. I don't know. But I know Whoopi walked off The View a couple of weeks ago and they stopped filming. So I don't know if they took a break or what are they doing. Oh, yeah. They tried to say that was a racist remark. And he's just like, but you know, they're gonna paint him as a racist because that's what they do. Anybody that's a Republican, especially if you're white, you're gonna be painted as a racist. The fascism is a new term for me since the election of Biden, since Biden's been elected. I haven't really heard that term before since, you know, I've heard the term before, but people in America are being called that. So I think it's something new that they're coining and, you know, referring to if you're a Republican, you agree with fascism. AOC, I think AOC started that. So you fascist and racism or racist, white supremacists, and not necessarily anti-Semitic. They call a lot of black people anti-Semitic. So, Hanging AZ, the rumor is they are canceling it. Yeah, I think they are because maybe they can't get along. I'm not for sure. And then I think they probably got low ratings, but they a bunch of nut jobs anyway. So anyway, so we've been online for a couple of hours. You guys, thank you for tuning in. You guys want to subscribe and like to this channel. Make sure you share this channel with your friends. I am sending all my good to you. I will talk to you soon.